Hey, are you making a different meal for your picky toddler? Or is your child telling you what they want to eat rather than you deciding what's on the menu? When parents have a picky toddler, they often fall into the trap of short order cooking or letting the child decide what's on the menu. This often stems from an indulgent feeding style, and that's what we're talking about today. I'm Jill Castle. I'm a pediatric dietitian, mom of 4, and I've helped thousands of families improve their feeding approach and watch their kid turn into a healthy, happy eater. I've spoken about feeding styles on this channel before. I have spoken about the worst way to feed a kid, and I've also talked about the best way to feed a child. You can find both of those videos below in the description. Today, we're going to talk about the indulgent feeding style. So we're going to talk about what it is, the signs of an indulgent feeding style, how it changes your child's eating, and what you can do. So let's get started. Okay, just to recap, let's talk about the 3 main feeding styles. The indulgent feeding style, which you are going to learn all about today. The diplomatic feeding style, which is the gold star standard, and it's what everyone should be trying to achieve. It is hands down the best way to feed a child. Again, you can watch the video about this topic and really get your hands wrapped around it. The third is what I think is the worst way to feed a child, and that's the controlling feeding style. Again, I've got a full video about that. You can go and check that out. Many times when I speak with families about their feeding style, they are quickly able to self-identify what's going on with them. And that's the whole goal here, is to help you see your part in feeding your child, because it's a relationship. It's not just your child who's behaving negatively or poorly or not cooperating. There's a dynamic happening. It's called a feeding dynamic, and you have a role in this too. And so these videos really help you determine what your role is and how you can tweak it so it's the best it can be. So when we talk about an indulgent feeding style, this goes back to childhood. We all have a feeding style when we enter parenthood, and it stems from the way that we were fed when we were children. So indulgent is, or permissive, sometimes you'll hear it called the permissive feeding style. It's when a parent is accommodating the child over and over again when it comes to food. The child asks for a certain meal, the parent accommodates. If you have a picky toddler, a picky eater, you might find yourself being more permissive with that child because you want to keep the peace. You want everyone to be happy. When parents are indulgent or permissive with feeding, this is what it looks like. Number 1, short order cooking. Making what the child asks for or what the child will eat. So, for example, you might be serving pasta, but your child doesn't want pasta. They want chicken nuggets or they want macaroni and cheese. So, what do? You don't make your child eat the pasta. You make macaroni and cheese or chicken nuggets for your child because that's what they asked for. That's what you know they will eat. And so you do double duty and make 2 meals. The pasta for the rest of the family, the chicken nuggets and mac and cheese for the picky toddler. So that's the primary way that permissive feeding plays out in families. Another way or another sign is that you are always making a separate meal for the child. You don't even ask. You just know that your child is not going to eat what you're eating for dinner, so you make something completely different from what the rest of the family is eating. Another sign of the indulgent feeding style is always saying yes to your child when they are asking for certain foods, they're asking for snacks, they want to go out and stop at a fast food joint. If you find yourself having a hard time saying no or setting a boundary, that can be a sign of the indulgent feeding style. So it's this yes persona that parents have. Everything is a yes. You want to make cookies today? Of course, let's make cookies today. Doesn't matter that you just finished off a batch of cookies, you're making them again. And so this is not to judge parents for the decisions they make, but to bring awareness to some of your tendencies when it comes to parenting food. So why is the indulgent feeding style potentially harmful to kids? Well, research studies, and there's been a lot of them, have shown that children who experience a parent who uses the indulgent feeding approach are likely to be eating more snacks, more desserts, and more treats. Why is this? It's because that yes reaction or response is governing everything. There aren't boundaries. There aren't no's. There aren't, that's not on the menu today, responses to children. And so this indulgent, sure, we're going to accommodate you, plays out in all day long with food. As a result, children can overconsume sweets, treats, and desserts and snacks. And obviously, when you're over-consuming those things, it can start to interfere with a child's health. Another thing that research has teased out is that when they experience an indulgent feeding style, they oftentimes only eat a few foods, or they have a very narrow or limited diet. And this cuts into the nutrient adequacy of their diet. They can miss out on certain nutrients. So for example, if you have a picky toddler or a picky child who doesn't want to eat any vegetables, and you don't offer them any vegetables because they're not going to eat them, you can see how you start to cut into the adequacy of vitamin A, the adequacy of fiber in their diet, the adequacy of vitamin C. And so what can happen when we are indulgent with feeding, when we accommodate our children too much, we get away from offering a balanced meal over time. And that can cut into them getting the nutrients they need to grow and develop. Thirdly, when children experience an indulgent feeding style, they can have poor appetite regulation. And this mostly comes from the fact that they're snacking frequently. And when kids snack all day and they have their 3 meals, they never truly get hungry. They never experience that feeling of hunger. They're eating kind of frequently all day long, and that can interfere with them being able to recognize when they're full and when they're hungry. So, how do you avoid an indulgent feeding style? Well, first off, like I mentioned before, that diplomatic feeding style is the gold standard. So make sure you watch the video either here on the video at this card or down below, click on the link. The diplomatic feeding style encourages structure with meals and snacks, boundaries with access to food, and reasonable choice. Again, it's the way we all should be feeding our kids. It's the style that encourages kids to eat a healthy variety of foods, listen to their bodies for hunger and fullness, and develop a healthy relationship with food. Number 2, I encourage you as the adult in the household to stay in charge of the food. You're the adult. You are the one who is shopping for food. You are preparing food. You are setting up the food environment in your home. I encourage you to make a nutritious, balanced meal. I've got videos on this channel about that. And be the provider that you need to be as the adult in the household. Your child can decide whether they're going to eat what you serve and how much. But your job is really to create balanced, nutritious meals that cover all those nutritional needs your child requires. Remember, children don't know what's good for them. They only know what they like. And so if you ask your child, hey, what do you want for snack today? They may not give you a nutritious, sustaining option for snack time. They're probably going to tell you, I want goldfish, which isn't going to do the job. So this is where, taking the leadership that you need to take as the parent in the relationship will help guide your children to a healthy diet. Third, stop short order cooking. One way to get around that is to make sure that you include 1 or 2 food items in the menu for whatever meal that you know your child can or will eat. So that could be a gallon of milk, a bowl of fruit, a loaf of bread and butter. Picking out 1 or 2 items when you plan your meals is considerate, but it is not catering. It's not short order cooking. It's being diplomatic with feeding. Last, aim for food balance over time. You're not going to get it right every single day, and that's okay. We are in this for the long haul, so what you're shooting for is balance over time. So the indulgent feeding style, just to recap, is associated with too much snacking and nutrient-poor foods. It interferes with children getting the full range of nutrients they need to grow and develop. So, if you want to make sure you're doing your best with food and feeding and avoiding the many mistakes that happen during toddlerhood, make sure you check out my parent course called the Nourished Child Blueprint. It will set you up for positive feeding, appropriate nutritious food selections, and it will also help you understand your child and their development and how it influences how and why they eat. I've linked that program below. Share this video with someone you care about and check out my next video. I'll see you next time.